Welcome to the 615 Locker Room Podcast, where me and Uncle Matt talk all thing Nashville sports and a little bit of other stuff. Um, it's been a while, life has been happening since the last episode. Whenever you're not a full time content creator, you got to be a part time content creator. And so uh, I just wanted to apologize because it's mostly been my fault that we haven't uploaded, but hopefully we can kind of get back on track and make more consistent uploads. Uh, but man, I just want to take a second and I feel like I as a fan have just been constantly comparing this season to last and how much of a crap show last season was, to be honest. Um, and I never thought that we would be on an 11 game winning streak right now, or unbeaten streak, because there is some draws in there. Um, but I mean, I could never have seen this coming. As a fan, I've found myself not watching as much since we've been winning, just because the games I feel like have been a little, if we're up, 2-0 at halftime or whatever, it's like, okay, I could probably go do something else, and maybe that makes me a bad fan, but I do miss a little bit of the competitiveness that comes with kind of the harder teams, which is whatever. But man, I just can't believe that we got past 3 games without catching an L. I still have some of that doubt from the Gary era of like things are going good. When is it gonna, hit the fan and go bad? Which it hasn't yet, and it's been a pleasant surprise and a huge surprise, really. Um, so I just kind of wanted your thoughts on that as a long term fan. What have you been thinking?
Yeah, I think most fans, most people that cover the sport probably would have been in the same boat as you. I think start of the season, my best case scenario was that we were going to be, you know, in that kind of bottom tier playoff range, maybe knocking on the door of being a home playoff team. But halfway through the season, we're third, second, fourth in that range. That was not something I foresaw coming this season. But it's a testament to the players, testament to BJ Callahan, what they've been able to do to put things back together quickly. I thought we had the roster. I thought we had the squad based on the performances in prior seasons before 2024. If we fix the thing here or there, we could jump back into being a competitive team again, not just a complete disaster like we were last season. But the leap to being back amongst looking like a potential one of the top teams in the league is a bigger leap than I thought we had. And that was something where early on in the season, probably the last time we had recorded, I still was kind of trying to pump the brakes, trying to, be a little cautious, thinking it was a little bit of fool's gold maybe, that maybe we just had some, easier matchups or some good results. But I mean, 11 games unbeaten now, the mania, whatever they were branded as month that we had where we just went on a tear. The one match in particular from that streak while we weren't recording that sticks out is like kind of like this is you can kind of put your line in the sand match of that, we are a much more competitive, a much stronger team than even I thought we'd be is that Columbus match at Columbus, who is always one of the best teams in the league, going up there, getting a draw, and arguably could have even come out of there with a win if we'd been able to maybe lock it down late in that game a little. Games has really shown me that like this is a Nashville team that's got a chance to do some really special things this season. That there's also been a few little warning signs that make me have a few concerns about what could potentially be the roadblocks between us and being a true like top tier championship level team. But I, I wouldn't trade this little run, this time period for anything, especially coming off of last season. It's been great to be a Nashville SC fan again.
Yeah, and I know like at the beginning of the season, a lot of the people in media, really, we were on the bottom of a lot of the list, the preseason ranking and such. So kind of looking at it now, what do you think is achievable in terms of goals for us, postseason, Open Cup, whatever?
Yeah, I mean the first one I would look at now is we've gotten to the point where Open Cup should really, really, really be a competition. We put a lot of push to try to get that one done just because we're into the quarterfinals now. even to begin that tournament. There wasn't a whole lot of the stronger teams were not in that tournament the way MLS structured their balance of who's in what competition this season. So getting to the final eight of that, not having quite the schedule congestion that we've had early in the season. When we come back into that, I believe we don't play in that tournament again until like early next month. I think is like the next round of that matchup, and it's a home match that we get there. So that's another huge benefit. You get a home match in the quarterfinals, huge opportunity to get yourself to the semifinals in that tournament. So that's a big one that I really think could be a big, just not only getting your first trophy in club history that way, but also could be something that could build momentum for the rest of the season. I know that's, going back to my fandom of Manchester United, of European soccer, a lot of the top teams in Europe, they get that secondary trophy first. And that kind of, it's almost like this is how you win a championship. You learn how to win by getting that first championship, and then you go get the big ones later. So that would be kind of my first goal, my first priority
Mm-hmm.
for Nashville SC would be get that trophy, get that cup, get that experience. Because, like I said, I do think there are a few things I've seen that make me think we're not quite in that top tier of like the teams that are really going to be going
Mm-hmm.
for the MLS Cup. But anything can happen in the season. I was convinced myself even last season that if we somehow got in the playoffs, Gary Smith's defensive tactics could like get us through a bunch of nil-nil games that we won on penalties. So I'm too optimistic sometimes, but yeah, I think the Open Cup is a realistic possibility for us this season, and I think we're going to be in the mix for at least one round of home playoff games, and being in that top four, top five range by the end of the season still. So I'm pretty excited. I think this last little stretch gave me a lot more confidence than I'd had previously, but the sort of flip side of that is we played so many home games during this stretch that
Mm-hmm.
a big chunk of our second half of the season is going to be road games. So that's where it's going to be a bigger test, a lot more to do. But, credit to us, getting the points where we needed to get them in the home stretch sets us up well to where, if we lose a game here or there, it's not a backbreaking crippler the way it could have been if we'd given up some points in this stretch we had at home over the May and late April time.
Yeah. And I mean, I've been saying since the beginning that I think Open Cup is a very, it's a winnable tournament. I feel like for us right now, especially looking at what we've done, I feel like it is winnable. I mean, looking at the game against Orlando, I believe in the Open Cup where we played, you know, probably our weakest lineup or one of the weaker lineups that we could have played, and we still somehow just outmanaged the other team. Um, I'm not sure if we talked about this last episode. I don't quite remember, but I it's just I don't know if BJ got lucky there or if it was truly just a masterclass. But even with weaker lineups against Orlando's pretty much starting team, we managed to win. So I think that was a true moment where I was like, okay, maybe we can win the whole thing. I had a question about last game for you, Matt.
Yeah.
Like I said before we started this, life kind of got a hold of me, so I was loosely watching the game. Uh, but I did notice at the end, Joe Willis won man of the match, and in the NSC community, there's a bit of a joke with Joe Willis. That he's a little bit of a washed keeper that maybe we should move on. Um, So I was wondering what his performance was like that he won man of the match when someone else scored a goal.
Yeah, the Chicago match last weekend was very interesting to me because I kind of alluded to this, earlier, but there was during the stretch of wins, stretch of unbeaten matches we had here, there was two big things that sort of stood out to me as kind of raising concerns that what
Mm-hmm.
could be, our Achilles heel, what could be things that could keep us from being, you know, a really good team, what could keep us from being an actual championship level team. And the two things that stuck out were first, just from a team perspective, we seem to struggle to be able to kind of flip that switch of when you've got a lead, when you're on top, control a game, see a game over the line. The Columbus game, obviously that's a really tough matchup, Columbus on the road, but having the lead twice and not being able to find a way to shut that game down, that was one that were in the moment. I was kind of like, I feel like if we were just a little bit better, if we were where we really wanted to be, that's a game you got to see out, especially because, that's a type of game you might play in the playoffs going to Columbus on the road. And if you can't, hold a lead, see it out, that's a tough thing. I think some of that was, we're still so trying to, get a hold of BJ's, primary philosophy, the way he wants us to play, we haven't quite figured out that ability to kind of flip the switch to, okay, let's sit back a little bit more. Because I remember like right before Columbus scored the equalizer, I was like, it is crazy how we're still so wide open. We're still playing such attacking football. I'm never a fan of parking the bus, but when you need to get a result, sometimes you got to park the bus. And we did not seem to have that ability yet to flip that switch. And the other one was during that stretch, there was a handful of games where there were some moments where, you know, Joe's not young. He's not a young keeper. He maybe to some fans don't even realize how old he is just because Nashville SC's only been here 5 years, but he was kind of on the wrong side of 30 when Nashville SC even started. So now we're 5 years into that. And, keepers typically in soccer can play longer than
Yeah.
field players just because, less running, less stuff. But, it is a very reaction, reflex based
Hmm.
position. So that starts to slow down for you. It can get, kind of troublesome still. And so, like the saves Joe's probably gotten criticized for, it's not like he's let in any just like super, super easy goals, I would say. But there's definitely some where, like, a 2 year ago Joe, you would think he's probably going to get to that. He's probably going to react a little bit quicker. And so that was something that was a concern for me through that stretch to start to see that of being like, oh, if we're in like a tight 0-0 playoff game, come October, and a little trickler goes through a couple legs and he sees it late and can't quite spring the way he used to spring and we lose 1-0, that would be pretty tough. But I thought he bounced back well. I thought the Chicago game was a great performance from him. There weren't too many crazy, crazy saves, but he did have to make a lot of them. And I thought on the other side of what I was talking about earlier, this was also a game where we kind of showed a different level of being able to absorb pressure, deal with pressure, play a little bit more defensively, and then come out of our shell when we need to. Because first 20, 25 minutes of that match, Chicago was really aggressive. They were really on the front foot. They had a ton of chances, and Joe bailed us out a few times. We had a few last ditch tackles from our defenders playing really well. And came into the next like 20 or 30 minutes after that, kind of took control, got back into our flow, played our type of soccer, put the 2 goals in, took control, and then the last like 15 to 10 minutes went back into the kind of let's just absorb the pressure, play good solid defense, let's be compact, let's see this game over the line. And that's what we did, got the 2-0 win. So it was the things that I'd been concerned about for the previous kind of stretch of matches. It was like we almost started to show, hey, maybe we can fix some of those things. Maybe we can adjust some things and come good. But I do think it's like I said, it's understandable. He is not a young man, Joe Willis. He's younger than me, so it's weird this is a weird thing when you're talking about sports when you're my age. You're starting to talk about like, this guy's over the hill. I was actually listening to a different podcast the other day, and they were talking about how one of the things that really started to make them feel old was when they would like create themselves in like sports games, like, and they'd have to be like, oh, if I create myself using my real birthday, I'm gonna have to retire in like 2 years. So it's like Joe Willis is younger than me, so it's weird for me to say he's a little bit old, but well, he's getting there. I think there was definitely some moves that Nashville made with the restructuring of the backup goalkeepers this season with an eye towards looking to the future. Schwake, our kind of primary backup, is a young guy. The kid we got who's the number one goalkeeper for the Dominican Republic is another guy that, looking at options for the long term potentially. But, Joe still makes the saves he should make. He still makes,
Yeah.
a handful of like really, really crazy saves. But he has had one or two where you're kind of like, Joe Willis 2 years ago makes that save and a little bit slow to react on a few of them, but that's going to happen. I would be interested to see, if they don't maybe when the transfer window opens in whatever it is, 2 or 3 weeks, if they don't, maybe kick the tires, see if there is another young goalkeeper out there they could bring in just to be in the mix. I don't think they're going to
Yeah.
try to replace Joe mid-season, but wouldn't be surprised if they at least explore the possibility of seeing if there's a young player out that they could bring in there to maybe be a little bit more competition than what we've got right now. But it is what it is. I think he's still, there's teams I think that would give, their left leg to
Yeah.
have a Joe Willis at goalkeeper
Yeah.
because, for the one or two little kind of rough ones he's had a million tough saves, a million, making hard saves look easy over the years. So I'm not, it's it's not like quite as crazy to say he's washed as it was to say Hani was washed when that was kind of the talk at a certain point this season. But he's not a spring chicken anymore, but he's still, you know, better than probably about half the keepers you could probably get in MLS right now. So he's not, it's not going to be It's not a disaster. It's not a catastrophe, but it is what it is.
I think a lot of the hate from Joe Willis comes from people who think we have the answer on our roster, which
Hmm.
after watching Schwake play some in the Open Cup game, and I think he may have played another time that I'm not remembering off the top of my head. He's still. I don't think he's the answer. I don't think that he was making a lot of mistakes that Joe Willis would never make, and it could probably go both ways. But I still think Joe Willis is a fine keeper. I mean, whenever you have one job, just like punters in the NFL, you have one job. That's to stop the ball from going into the goal. So whenever you mess that up, people are going to be super angry at you, and that's just part of it. It happens. Sometimes a punter will miss a field goal, even though that's all they train for. It happens. I, I I'd be interested to see um, what the future looks like at the goalkeeper position. Because, like I said, I don't think our guys that we have are really ready for consecutive starts. Um, and I don't know there's anyone out there that we could get that's better for around the same value without having to lose some of that GAM or TAM or whichever one it is nowadays that we're using for the players. But yeah, Joe Willis is 36 years old, so he is 4 years away from 40. Um, who knows what will happen there? But
Yeah. I think you made a really good point there, though, that, one of the things that's kind of maybe appreciated about the goalkeeper position is that, how rarely you actually can come into the game, especially like in this season where Nashville SC has had a lot more possession, been a lot more on the front foot than we have been in the past. He might not be involved in the game for 8, 7 minutes at a time, longer even sometimes, and all of a sudden one counterattack's coming the other way, and all of a sudden he's got to make a save out of nowhere, and he hasn't touched the ball in 15 minutes. You got to be alert, you got to be on, and it's easy to kind of. It's one thing when I was playing, I was like, I could never be a goalkeeper because my ADD would be just too
yeah,
crazy to be like the one guy on the field that's just like not involved that much. I constantly needed to be around the ball. I constantly needed to be involved in the action. I'd be the dude who'd be sitting back there if I was goalkeeper and start like looking up in the stands and being like, I wonder if my mom's at this game or not. I wonder if she's here today. And all of a sudden somebody shoots and it goes in the back of the net. And I was like, oh, I totally forgot I was supposed to be back here doing something. So just being switched on, for 90 minutes when you might only touch the ball,
hmm
10, 12 times, might only have to make, you know, 3 to 5 saves. That's a skill in and of itself.
yeah. Um, I want to switch gears a little bit. I wore this jersey for a reason. The USA. I watched your latest vlog, Matt. It was before Catter Day, but the U.S. men's national team at Geodis Park, and I was furious for you. And we briefly talked about it in DMs. But if you got all you guys really need to do, you can skip this whole segment and just go look at the sandwich that Matt had paid $20 for. That was ridiculous. Luckily, every time that I've upgraded from club or upgraded to club, it's been a night where they had full food. But um, I've went to games before, specifically the Concacaf, one of those games where they only had like two food places open that you could buy from. Um, and as a fan, that experience is so you shouldn't do it. I understand the cost, the logistics, whatever. Um, but for like the U.S. men's national team, I knew a few people that was their first time at Geodis. If they would have expected club treatment and got what you got, they probably would never come back to Geodis. Because I mean, I'm a person where if a company I feel like screws me over, I'm probably gonna do whatever I can to not use that company again. And Geodis Park, it's an entity. Um, I just kind of want to hear about your thoughts, on Geodis Park in this environment, and then we'll talk a bit about the actual performance.
Yeah, I'm always hesitant to like pick and choose who to throw blame at in situations like that, just because
Hmm.
situation like that, that Lotus Park was rented out by U.S. Soccer for that match, so I would,
Okay.
just assume a lot of the operational decisions were made by U.S. Soccer in terms of what type to, how to spend, how to staff, how to do type of things. So I
Fair
maybe
enough.
it's just because I don't want to blame the hometown site. I'm a little hesitant to blame Geodis as much as I can blame U.S. Soccer, just because U.S. Soccer has kind of gotten every
Hmm.
decision they've made wrong recently, so it's easier to blame them too. But and it was even the thing, like you mentioned, somebody going there for the first time. Like if you didn't really know what the typical club experience was like if you didn't know that it's usually like a great kind of all inclusive buffet, all inclusive beverage, you might not have had that bad of experience if they had just like actually sold good food, but like to not only not do the normal club experience of like all inclusive food and beverage, but then to sell just literal like Firefest cheesesteaks was just that was what was like over the top. Like I almost wouldn't have been as mad having to buy food because I knew there was like a U.S. women's game at Geodis Park last year, I think,
Hmm.
where they same deal didn't do the
Okay.
typical service in club, but it was still like decent food. And if you
Hmm.
wanted to, you could go to Chivanadas or go to Rock and Dough, get like the regular concessions too. But to like not do the club service and then to serve like a cold cheesesteak that you just chuck two pieces of cheese on like at the last minute was like what, and charge whatever they charged for it was like that was where it was like okay, it's one thing. I would not be so mad if they didn't do the usual club service, but to not do the
Yeah.
usual club service and provide crappy food was like a bridge too far. It's like I was like, if I'd known this, I would have just because I was like, well, what was the because like I got lucky to where I had used the credits they gave season ticket
Hmm.
members to buy my seats. But if you were just like a normal person, and you spent $175 on those seats, like what did you get for it? Because that's one of the great things about Geo's Park is like every seat has a good view of the pitch, so you're not paying for like a better view or a better spot or a better seat. Usually if you go to club, you're paying for the club experience,
Yeah.
and in this case, all you did was pay like $100 more for the opportunity to buy a crappy Philly cheesesteak because the seats on the other side of the stadium or even in supporter section or anywhere else would have been just as good, if not better. So it was kind of a just a weird deal, and like it was weird. Yeah, it was, and it did not help the U.S. getting just run off the park by Switzerland in that match either. So it was kind of a everything that could have went wrong on that day.
Yeah, I mean it's there's the padded seats, it has that going for it. If you want to talk about just the club, you got the padded seats. I'd be interested to see how much of those, like, $100 plus tickets were sold by the club versus reseller. Um,
Hmm.
but it seems like where you used your credit, it would be an official ticket, not a resold ticket. But they should still have deli sandwiches or like finger foods, have something very minimal, especially whenever you promote the crap out of it like they did. They
Yeah.
were the credits. Go ahead.
I don't know if I mentioned this in the video, but there I got the vibe that a lot of the people that were sitting around me, like I mean, it wasn't that full. Like I had my whole row was empty, and then the row in front of me was empty. But the people that
Hmm.
were in the section I was sitting, I got the vibe that it was kind of like a maybe like a friends and family section. So I don't know that how many people there actually paid for the seats at all because there was like people in Switzerland jerseys with like I don't know if you have ever been to like a sporting event and you see like like a somebody who's clearly a mom and they've
Hmm.
got a jersey and it's got the name of a player that nobody would ever buy that player's jersey unless they were related to him. There was a
Yep.
lot of that going on where I was looking around and seeing like a Switzerland person with a heard of, which is not like I know the entire Swiss national team or anything like that, but you got to
Yeah.
think like also how many Switzerland fans are coming to games in Nashville for like a random match like that. But there was also some U.S. people that had like fringe, side players that you wouldn't expect to have people to buy their jersey unless they related to him. So I was like, I think I'm kind of in the friends and family section today, and so I'm probably, I didn't once again didn't pay for my ticket because I had the credit from the club, but I don't
Yeah.
know that everybody else in my section had paid either, which is probably why they were having a lot better experience than I was having too. Because they're just like, oh, this is the seats my brother, who's the right back for the Switzerland team, got me. This is just a great experience. I'm here for free. It's a great game. Switzerland's
Yeah.
beating the crap out of U.S. This is great. So there wasn't as like didn't feel like it was like as many like normal just run of the mill. I'm
Hmm.
going to see a soccer game fans kind of sitting around me either.
Why do you think that? I mean, Nashville's a big city. The Nashville SC games I go to, I mean, they normally have a pretty good turnout. It's not always a packed out stadium, but why do you think something with like such a big name as USA versus Switz, why they had to promote it so much for such a low turnout?
I think U.S. soccer, and once again, not sure who to put the blame on here, but I think they have, been one of the early offenders with the Ticketmaster dynamic pricing deal. I don't know how much you've, experienced that, where they're starting to do a deal. It's been going on for about probably 3 or 4 years now, where they've got an algorithm that Ticketmaster uses to where the ticket prices can fluctuate based on demand. So, the first day you might go on and look at
Oh,
ticket prices and they could be hundreds of dollars. Like this has been a big thing that's been plaguing the Club World Cup that's going on in America right now. Um, and you might be like, I'm not paying all that money for these games. And then, it'll slowly trickle down and stuff like that. And US soccer was, even before dynamic pricing, was way overpricing their games at a certain point in time. You can go to a Nashville SC game if you want supporters section tickets. You can get in for probably less than $20. I think best case scenario, getting price at least right up until kickoff of this game was probably 40 or 50 bucks. So it's just kind of a sliding scale where you know. And I also wonder. I was actually thinking about this at the game. How much Nashville SC existing has even kind of dragged away some of the market for the U.S. Because I mean, before we had Nashville SC, if the U.S. team came here, that was your one chance to see like big high level soccer here
mm-hmm.
in Nashville. So it was like everybody who wanted to see soccer was going to go to that game. Now we got 18 to 20 home games a season. A team that we regularly see, players we're really familiar with, players we really support.
Mm-hmm.
That maybe has pulled away some people's budget, some people's spending, some people's interest level in the national team because that used to be maybe some people's number one interest in soccer. Now we've got National SC, and they're like, U.S. teams kind of sucked lately. Do I really want to spend $100 to go see the national team in a friendly? I think it would also have been different if it'd been like a competitive match, if it'd been like a World
Yeah.
Cup qualifier or a Gold Cup match or a Nations League match or something like that. But being just a pure, friendly that didn't mean anything, and against a team like Switzerland, which Switzerland's got good players, but it's not like they were bringing in like um, stars that you would be coming out to see from another country either. So I think it was kind of a combination of things,
Yeah.
and I really was that kind of creeped into my head when I was at the match. I was like, I wonder how much the fact that it's like a handful of times U.S. soccer used to come to Nashville, it was like the only game in town. It was like that's my one
Mm-hmm.
chance to see really good soccer. And now we kind of get regular soccer matches at a high level, kind of on a weekly basis. How much that's kind of pulled away some of the market for U.S. games here in Nashville, at least. But it's probably a lot of those things all combining into one big conglomeration. Prices, other things competing in the market, the performance of the team lately. It's probably a combination of all of it, I would say.
Yeah, and I mean, I don't know. I feel like that should be a big turnout, no matter like what soccer teams are playing or what soccer teams are there. Because whenever like last year, I went to the or 2 years ago, I went to the USA Ghana match, which was my first, soccer game ever at Geodis Park, and it was a packed out stadium, um,
Hmm.
which like you said, USA is not really the most favorable right now, so it may be different. And at that point in time, they had maybe they had better players. I'm not super sure they knew it was going to be an easy win. Who knows? Who knows? But I want to
Yeah,
shift
we
gears.
were missing a couple of the key players like
Hmm.
Pulisic, Weston
Yeah,
McKennie. A few of the bigger stars weren't in for this match where they were at the previous one. So that's also a factor. Is like it kind of is a trickle down effect where it's like if you're a fan and you see that one of the star players aren't going to be there, you're kind of like, well, is this a match I can skip? Is this an important match? It's like, does it have the FOMO factor that would really make you feel like, oh, I got to go, I got to buy a ticket, I got to go to this? And this one kind of didn't have that FOMO factor to it, where it was kind of like, do I really want to go to Geodis Park on a Tuesday night to see a meaningless match between USA's B squad and Switzerland's A minus squad? Probably not for some people, but for me, I was just like, I had the tickets, I had that credit. I was like, I got nothing else to do on Tuesday night. I'll pop over and see how the match goes.
yeah, and it being on Tuesday night obviously probably affected it too.
Hmm.
But I just think the facilities at Geodis Park, like obviously US renting it out, it makes it different, but it should have take care of your club people. Um, did you notice if all the other restaurants were open or not?
I didn't because I got to the match kind of late. I think I could tell like I because when I left, I knew the Ben and Jerry's stand was open because it had like the
Mm-hmm.
biggest line I'd seen at a soccer game all season. But I got to the match kind of late. It was like 15, 20
Mm-hmm.
minutes into the first half when I got there. It was already 4-0 at halftime. Wasn't having the best of times, and it was once again it was a Tuesday night. I had to work the next day, so I think I left with like 20 minutes left in the match because I was like, I would like to beat traffic and not get stuck in traffic trying to leave this catastrophe of an experience. So I didn't do like a full like walk around experience type deal. But
Mm-hmm.
I'm pretty sure most of the stands were open, and if
Oh
nothing
yeah,
else, they were I'm sure like the regular like burger hot dog stands at least were open. I don't know if like the full chivanadas and the
yeah.
more regular spots were, but I wish if they had been, I wish I would have got chivanadas because you never can go wrong with chivanadas.
You
That's the
can't.
one advice I would give anybody going to Geos Park is like if you or have any doubts about any food options, just go to chivanadas. That'll be a instant win no matter what.
Um, yeah, I think my first time trying the empanadas were actually in club seats. They had that as one of the main courses one night. Um, but I feel like we kind of hammered this as much as we could. I want to kind of switch around to NBA talk for a little bit. I didn't have this on the docket, but I just remembered while recording. So obviously, my prediction for the finals was very wrong. The Warriors have been out for a round or two, but Stephen Curry got hurt. That's probably why. But earlier this week, we had a blockbuster trade, as it's defined by ESPN, come out of Memphis. Um, Memphis Grizzlies traded Desmond Bain. Uh, Honestly, probably the arguably the best player on the team. John Morant obviously has the star power, or whatever, but he's always out. It seems like so. I would say Desmond Bain is really Memphis's guy. He's been there since they drafted him. They traded him to Orlando Magic in a deal for Memphis received Kentavious Caldwell Pope, who isn't really isn't that great. Cole Anthony, another probably second, third string point guard, and especially coming onto the Memphis team since we have Ja Morant and we have Scottie Pippen Jr. He's going to probably be the third down the line. And then we got four first round picks, which is that's good, um, and uh, a future pick for first round lottery or something like that. So basically, five first round picks and two below average players for Desmond Bain. The picks are amazing. A lot of people I see online are talking about how Desmond Bain really isn't worth the picks, but Memphis is kind of a smaller market for basketball, so I feel like, and when people think Memphis now, they're thinking John Morant. So I don't think people really understand what Desmond Bain does to a team. I think he's going to really help out the Orlando Magic. Um, but the problem is that these first round picks, they're kind of based on how the team that we get them from performs. So it can be a late first round pick, which is obviously not going to be as valuable as an early first round pick. Um, and I think us adding Desmond Bain to the Orlando Magic roster with who they have right now, I think they're going to have a good season, good few seasons. Um, and I think it's going to make those picks a little less valuable. Um, and we've brought this up many of times when talking about all different kinds of sports. It's always hard to watch a guy that's good for the team leave. Desmond Bain, ever since he got here, he's done many charities. His wife has started up a few businesses in Memphis. He is a guy that does a lot for Memphis, Tennessee. Um, He's helped our team perform well. So it just really hurts seeing him leave. It's a loss. It'll probably be felt in the locker room. Uh, a new question now is who's going to be our starting point or starting shooting guard because looking at the depth and the new guys we got, no one really touches it. We could draft someone next year maybe to I I don't know. It's an interesting trade. Um, I went on for a long time. I know you're not really super into basketball, but do you have any thoughts?
Oh yeah, I mean, I heard a lot of the same things, just kind of like following it and reading about it that you kind of mentioned, where it seemed like from like the national media perspective, there was a lot of like, oh wow, what a steal by Memphis. They got like 4 picks for like this guy who's good, but but not 4 picks good. But then from like a lot of like the local fans were kind of like this. I don't think you understand how important this guy was, not only to the team as on the court, but off the court as well. So it seems like kind of a mixed bag on that sort of thing. And you made a great point. The key to any trade like this is what do you do with those picks? How do those picks turn out? Because 4 first round picks sounds incredible on paper, but if Orlando wins the next 4 NBA championships and those are all like bottom of the first round picks and Memphis picks crappy players with them, then it's all for naught. So it's kind of like always gotta make sure whatever you get out of the picks has got to be worth it. I always think it's funny though with NBA. It's like because I'm more of a NFL soccer person than I am basketball, but like NFL like they act like first round picks are like gold. Like you have to like give up the world to get a first round pick in the NFL and NBA. It's like, oh, we'll give you 6 first round picks for this guy. We'll give you five
Yeah,
first round picks for this guy. They just throw them around there, especially like the teams that like feel like I guess it's more of like a we feel like we're able to compete. And to your point, like this first round pick is going to be like the 25th pick. We don't care about it that much. Whereas I always do think that with the NFL is like you should probably be a little bit more lenient with the draft picks because if you think you're going to be good, it's probably not going to be that good of a draft pick anyway. So, but it is always a funny thing where it's like what NFL teams value draft picks, whereas NBA teams are like just 100 draft picks for this guy and stuff like that. But be interesting because I do know like a little bit about Orlando. I go to Disney World a bunch, so like they're a team that I kind of loosely follow, probably most other than Memphis, and I know they've got like some pretty solid young players. So it could have been a thing where they're like, we feel we're pretty close. If we get one more piece, we can maybe make some noise. And Memphis maybe thought, hey, we gave it a shot with this kind of core. We can get some draft capital and kind of start to reassemble stuff. We can kind of, give it another look. Because I think that was like a lot of stuff I heard about, like people saying with the Knicks too, is like that they, fired their coach who got them to the best season they've had in a while. But it was kind of like that was their ceiling. And it was kind of like, hey, it was great, best we've had in a while. But for this coach, for this group of players, it's probably as good as we can get. We probably do need to reset. And that maybe is where Memphis is saying where they've had like a pretty good team for the last 3 or 4 years, but haven't quite been able to jump from that
yeah.
mid level to real top contender level. And maybe this is just feeling like it sucks. A player that a lot of fans I know loved. Hate to see him go, but reset button a little bit and kind of build around uh, core you got a little bit more, I guess.
I am probably in the minority here, but I would have rather saw John Morant go. Just because his availability in terms of injuries, in terms of antics, and really, I mean, I think Desmond Bain outperforms him when they're both playing. So I would have rather saw John Morant go. Probably would have gotten more, but with a player like that, you kind of also got to think about what does other teams have that are equal that they're also willing to give up. Um, we'll just have to see how that plays out. I mean, it's like we both said, the picks are getting picks are gambles. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know if you're going to do good, if the other team is going to do. Who knows? Who's going to be in the draft class? Because some players, they might wait a year until Memphis doesn't have an early draft pick because they don't want to go to Memphis. With NIL being a thing
Mm-hmm.
now, they're still getting
Yeah.
money. I mean, they can wait. So it'll be interesting to see it play out. If we were looking at players for player trade on that, obviously Desmond Bain is way better than the other guys, but I don't know.
Yeah. I also kind of wondered, it kind of looks like Oklahoma City is poised to be a team that's kind of going to dominate the West for like the next like
Yeah.
3, 4, 5 years, and maybe the entire league too. So how much of a decision like that by a team like Memphis is saying, "Hey, we're not close to them right now. Let's
Hmm.
reset right now, and maybe we can start building to where 3, 4 years from now." We've got that type of team. We've got the 3, 4 young studs and like maybe a veteran guys at that point in John Morant who can really take over the league at that point because maybe we're looking at the situation where we like our team now.
Hmm.
Is it a championship team? Is it going to be a team that can hang with Oklahoma City? Yeah, maybe we should hit the reset button. I'm sure some of that goes into the decision making too.
Yeah, and I think we are. I think it's kind of interesting. I don't want to harp on the NBA too much, but it is interesting that we are kind of seeing this new uh, strategy for building teams of like, let's get really young guys and let's just invest in them for a few years. It might be tough, but um, whenever their time comes and they develop, they're going to develop good. And look at OKC. They're, they've been favorites to win the past probably 2 years, and they're still pretty young to where they can go for another probably five. Um, and but with that being said, and you develop those players, when you have to have the personnel to be able to develop players. If you have crappy personnel, uh, then they're not going to learn and adapt. Two, you got to think about as those players get better, they're all probably going to want bigger contracts. What can your team have the capital to pay? So it's interesting dynamic to see. I'm super excited for the future of the NBA. I think it looks bright. I think we're in a new era. The people that I grew up watching are now kind of starting to get to that point of retiring or have retired. Um, and then some of those younger guys from whenever I first started watching are now hitting their prime, or they're just like a smidge past their prime. And now we're seeing the next age of NBA players. I feel like with like Shea, Anthony Edwards, that they're going to be greats for the next decade, maybe. But yeah, so it's exciting to watch the NBA right now. I wanted,
Yeah, just another like quick interesting thing, for me is like somebody who's a casual NBA fan that just the broader spectrum of the league is got these two small market teams, young stars, new players on the rise, and the two big things that have for the teams is we just got the news the Lakers are being sold. We had the news about a
mm,
month or so ago that the Celtics are being sold. So like two of the larger market teams, two of the most successful teams in the league's history are going through major changes right now. And on the court, we've got these new rising stars, new markets, new teams, and it's honestly it's piqued my interest in the NBA in a way. I've watched I think three of the finals games so far just because I'm like, oh, these
mm,
are new teams. I'm interested in this. I've seen the other teams and the other franchises that were always there for so many years. It's like, oh, this is something new, something fresh, something different. I can get behind this and get interested in this. Whereas I was kind of like, do I really want to see the Lakers again? Do I really want to see LeBron? And I respect for all the players. I'm not disrespecting anybody's talent level, but I mean, I just as somebody who's like just a casual basketball fan, I'm more
mm,
interested in new, different things than seeing the same people
yeah,
win over and over again. I'm sure it's the same way with. People from outside of like the NFL, they're probably like, I really, as I'm also this way as an NFL fan, those like, do I really want to see Patrick Mahomes win another Super Bowl? It's like, no, I don't. I want the Titans to win a Super Bowl, but I get that whole thing. But it's definitely been like a interesting to see the kind of changing landscape of the NBA and what that could mean for like the future.
yeah. That's interesting to hear. Kind of, yeah. Uh, I've talked to you, Matt, about this. I don't know if I've mentioned this on the pod, but my dream job is to be a carny, run carnival games. I think that's the coolest one in the world, and I've kind of wanted to test my luck with that. And I've created some games for us to play today on the cast in this new segment. Um, so I want you to blind rank. I asked ChatGPT to name five Nashville SC players. I want you to blind rank them, one being the best Nashville SC player, five being the worst. Um, you can kind of go into how you're going to rank these. It can be by performance, what they mean for Nashville. It can mean however you want to rank them. I want you to rank these five players. Um, we talked about him earlier. The 36-year-old veteran goalkeeper, Joe Willis.
Am I supposed to just like pick a number 1 through 5 blind without knowing who else is on the list? Is that how this is?
Yeah, yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
that's tough. That is tough. I probably would say I'd put Joe, not knowing what else is coming. I'd go just middle of the road. I'd go three,
Okay.
just because, as we mentioned, he's maybe not where he was a few years ago, but I don't know that the other goalkeepers on the team are at a level where I would trust them more than him or anywhere close to him still. So I think he's still an important player. He's not, top tier like he maybe was in the early days of Nashville SC, but I think, for based on the depth we have behind him and the stuff he still pulls out every once in a while, I'll still put him kind of mid tier. So I'll put him third.
Okay, so you're ranking them on their performance right now.
Yeah, I'm going. Yeah,
Okay.
current standing.
Okay, then the second player Chat GPT gave me was Jack Mayer.
Jack Mayer. All right. I mean, current performance, he's going to be in a better spot than he probably would have been this time last season. Because last season, I was thinking he was at the end of his rope with Nashville SC. But this last little stretch, especially the period where we didn't have Walker Zimmerman available from the concussion, he's really looked more like the player that he did 2 or 3 years ago, where he's just, he's not spectacular. He's not like a world beater. He's not going to, light the world on fire, but he's solid center back who does his job pretty well, is not going to make too many mistakes. And, when he does make a mistake, he cleans it up pretty well. Man, this is tough because, like, I feel like I wish I could. Two feels high just because, I mean, he's a really, really good player, but I mean, not knowing what's coming, shoot. I'd say based on the fact that we have Walker, we have Josh Bauer, we have Palacios has shown pretty well this season. I think I think Jack Mars had a good season, but I think I would put him behind Joe Willis. So I'll have to say four for Jack Mar. I feel like I talked really good about Jack Mar, and then I'm like, now he's fourth. It's like,
You would put Josh Bauer above him?
no, I'm just saying because we have him, I think
Okay.
that gives us a little more depth at the position of center back. So because of that, I would probably put. I think we have less depth at goalkeeper, so I'd have
Okay.
to keep Joe Willis ahead of Jack Mar for that reason.
Okay. Yeah, that makes sense. Um, so third player is an experienced U.S. international and captain type figure at 32 years old, Walker Zimmerman.
Walker. I mean, he's definitely one or two based on the list here, and like the only hesitation I have with picking one of those spots is what's to come. If I put him two, and then like the rest of the list is like guys who are coming off the bench for 5 minutes through the game, and I have to put one of them at one. That's going to be a tough spot. So just out of caution and not knowing what's to come, I'll put Walker at number one, just because
Okay.
um, I think when we acquired him just a little bit before the start of our first season, that was a huge move that really like showed that Nashville was serious about competing, going out and making that trade to bring him in from LAFC. Um, we weren't just there to be like an expansion team, just having fun. We went and got the dude who was like already had won MLS Defender of the Year previously, so that was a big statement of what Nashville SC was intended to be, and he's been a key component from day one. I think it shows the level of respect he had from his teammate, from coaches, that he Dax McCarty as captain while Dax McCarty was still on the team, which is always kind of a weird, awkward situation when that sport just that's left to come. He would be one or two probably on the list if you gave me a list of the entire roster. So I'll just put him at number
Okay.
one, just not knowing what's to come.
Okay, cool. Yeah, I think that's a pretty good spot for him. The fourth player ChatGPT gave me is a star midfielder from Germany, Hani Mukhtar.
Okay, well, I'm glad this worked out that way then, because I'm going to put Hani Mukhtar at number one because there's no way there's anybody left that would be number one other than Hani Mukhtar. Or I put him at two, I guess, because I put Walker at one. So yeah,
Yeah.
I'm fine with that because I do feel like you could make a case if you really wanted to like go into debate club of who really is one, who really is two. Obviously, Hani had the huge season, Golden Boot, MVP, but he had a little bit of a cold streak last season. He started this season a little cold. There were nobody at the start of this season was saying, "Is Walker Zimmerman washed?" We've had these stupid Honey Mukhtar wash conversations. So, in terms of who's been more consistent, who's been, it's not as flashy or as shiny to be like, the star center back as it is to be the
Yeah.
star attacker goal scorer. But I think if you really wanted to go to court and make a case and make your case, you could maybe argue Walker is the number one player over Hani Mukhtar. So I'll put Hani at 2, and I'll be happy with that with Walker at number 1.
Okay. Yeah, I think you you got it pretty spot on there. And then number five, your number five pick, you don't have a choice here, is Matthew Corcoran.
Okay, I'm happy with the way this list worked out. This is probably exactly how I would have ranked it if you just give me all 5 players to start with, because he's had a pretty, promising little start to his Nashville SC
Mhm.
career. I mean, I think it was, I can't remember which one of the matches it was, but one of these matches in the stretch when we weren't recording where he was like balling, looking like he was already a ready-made, full level MLS star, and he's what, only like 18 or 19 still. So,
He
he's
is,
not surpassed where those 4 ahead of him
I
are,
think he's
but
16.
he's a good. Oh, even younger than I thought, even. So yeah, even better. But yeah, yeah, I think that worked out perfect. He'd be 5th. He's had a good, promising start to his career in Nashville SC, but he's got a long way to go to kind of be in the same pantheon of the 4 players that I have ahead of him right now. So I don't know how that worked out in my favor, that it all looked out and just stretched out perfectly, but I would be exactly probably the ranking. I might switch Walker and Hani, but that, like I said, you could make a case one way or the other for those two.
Yeah.
Those two are probably, I think, without question, 1 and 2 in Nashville SC history. So either one of them being at the top had to be the way to go.
Yeah, I think you had a pretty spot on list. I think maybe there's an argument for three and four being switched with Jack Mayer and Joe Willis. Um, but that's kind of the expected group of people besides uh, Matthew Corcoran that I figured Chat GPT was telling me. I ran it again and it gave me just completely random players, but it only pulls from the current. So I think maybe next week we're gonna have to do an all-time Nashville SC line ranking for you and make it a little bit more challenging.
That would be that'd be a
Um,
fun challenge. I think in one of my previous before we started the podcast, one of my live streams towards the start of the season, I did a
mhm.
Nashville SC all time 11, and it was some positions were like pretty straightforward. Like obviously Joe Willis is going to be in there because he's kind of the only starting goalkeeper we've ever had. Walker, Hani, there's shoe ins, but there was some where I was like a little bit more, even stumped me a little bit. Like who would I go with here? I really wish ChatGPT would have given you Alex Muyl, because I would have easily put him 5th, just because I'm not an Alex Muyl fan. Like I just whatever. I would have easily put him 5th. That would have been the easiest pick I would have had in that whole thing. Would have been Alex Muyl, but he works hard. I give him credit. He's a hard worker. He runs. He never stops running. He tries.
I
That's what I can say. But
I don't think you heard me earlier, but you were talking about how like when you kind of know that someone's mom is there at the game wearing their jersey. I saw someone in an Alex Mule jersey, or it was a family in an Alex Mule jersey, and I was like, okay, that's got to be his family because no one else has bought that. Um, but I have another game for you because I'm really trying to make this Carney thing happen, and I've been working real hard at it. So you mentioned earlier how much a Titans Super Bowl would mean to you. So I want to know, what would Matt do for a Titans Super Bowl? The first thing, would you give up your favorite food for a year?
I would probably would do that. I got a pretty diverse palate. There's nothing that I really think I couldn't give up and not just
Move
hate
to a
it. Like,
different
I
thing.
love burgers, I love tacos, I love good steak, but I think I could, there's probably nothing that I could, for just a year, I could probably find a way to get by for a year without whatever I would officially decide my favorite food was. So for a Titan Super Bowl, yeah, that would be an easy yes.
Would you delete all social media?
Ooh, that would be, I probably would, because the only, does that include YouTube? Do I have to get rid of my channel?
You can post, but you can't look at it after.
Okay, well, I mean, that's probably for the better anyway, because that would probably cause me less stress of like trying to keep up with views and comments and stuff like that. But I probably would, just because I really don't. use social media much outside of Twitter. I use Twitter to kind of keep up with news. Like I don't like watch, I don't do like the For You stream. I kind of have like lists where I group people by like sports, news, entertainment, and kind of check up on stuff that I want to follow there. Instagram, I hate that it's not like chronological. It drives me crazy. Like when I'm like looking at something and like I go to like it and it's like this was from 4 weeks ago. I'm like, well that sucks. Or like
Yeah.
a restaurant I like will post like we got a burger special and I'm like, oh this is from 3 weeks ago. This sucks. So like Instagram
Yeah.
kind of frustrates me. I use it kind of the same way I use TikTok where I'm just scrolling through like funny videos and my wife or whoever will send me videos on there too that I'll have to watch every once in a while. So that would be closer than the food one just because I do like Twitter. But I
Hmm.
for the Titan Super Bowl, I would definitely delete them. Yeah, for sure. It'd probably be good for me anyway.
Here's another tough one. I don't know what time you wake up in the morning for work, but would you wake up at 4:30 a.m. every day, even weekends, even holidays, for a Titans Super Bowl?
Every day would be tough. I usually wake up about during the week. I wake up about 5:15 because I'll usually like try to
Okay.
get up and do something productive before I go to work because I don't like just waking up and having the first thing I do be going to work. That's just a weird quirk I have. So I think for the most part I could do it. Weekends, holidays, that might be a little tougher.
Yeah.
There's definitely some days where maybe I'm not a drinker, but I have too much fun and don't want to wake up till noon. So there'd be some tough days in there. But I mean, once again, I feel like that's a sacrifice I would make for the Titans to win a Super Bowl. Is definitely because like I said, most days that's not a challenge for me. Bigger challenge for me would be going to bed. Like I have a really hard time going to bed. Like I get doing stuff
Yeah.
at night, and I'm just like I want to sit up all night and watch too many movies, too many TV shows, play too many video games. And then my wife's texting me like it's 11:30. Why aren't you in bed yet? And I'm like, oh, I should probably go to bed. So, but waking up early is not. I think I could do that.
They're starting to get a little bit harder. I have a few more for you. Would you wear the rival team's jersey to every sports match for a Super Bowl?
So I think I would, and I think I could get away with it more with the Titans than maybe some other teams,
Hmm.
just because I don't think the Titans rivals. I don't feel like they're as like hated, dire competitive as like some other teams. Like
Hmm.
you not being a Manchester United fan, I could never wear a City jersey. I could never wear a Liverpool jersey. I got a really good friend who's a Chelsea fan, and one time I lost a bet and had to wear a Chelsea jersey to like a event we went to together, but that was just a one-off thing. Um, Vandy, I could never wear any UT stuff. Like I, no chance I would ever wear UT stuff.
Come on, man.
Even like Nashville SC, it feels like we have a lot more of a bitterness with like our rivals than like
Yeah.
the Titans fans. I don't know if it's because of proximity. I don't know. If it's because of like the whatever it is, but like I guess the Titans' biggest rivals would be like the Colts or like the Jaguars, and like I don't like them, but I don't have like the same just like disgust for them that I do for like the rivals of my other team. So I guess I could probably do it, and it just being like practical, like one of the bad things about being a Titans fan right now is being more of a commuter city, being more of a travel city. We get a lot of the other team's fans that come to the
Yeah.
home games now. So I would not, it's not like I'd be like, if you were like a Vandy fan going to Neyland Stadium, you'd stick out like a sore thumb. But like,
Yeah.
if I had to wear a Colts jersey at the Titans Colts game, I'd be one of many people doing that. So I wouldn't be like as much of a pariah or wouldn't stick out as much as I would in other situations. So I don't like that that's a part of the Titans culture right now, but it would help me in that situation. So I would do it, I guess. I
Okay.
maybe not Ravens. I don't know if I could wear Ravens stuff. That'd be the closest one. That'd be the toughest decision would be would I wear Ravens stuff just because I really hate the Ravens. But that would be the only one I'd have to have a long think about.
Okay. These next two are going to be tough ones. The first one is, could you go no streaming services? This is, Netflix, Hulu, Max. I'm putting YouTube in there for a year.
You know, could I get regular cable? Could I just like watch like Comcast?
I don't think you can get cable.
Dang. That one, unfortunately, I'd probably have to say no, just because I don't think my ADHD would allow me to just sit and not have it. I don't think I could read books for a year. I don't think I could just do whatever. Because like I mean, even when I'm like playing video games, I usually will like have like I'm crazy in that like I'll if I'm watching sports, I'll usually be watching the sports on mute and have like a podcast going in like my earbuds, and then
Hmm.
maybe also playing like a video game either on on my PlayStation or on my phone. So like I'm usually doing five things at the same time most of the time. So to be able to like strip a lot of that away and make me have to do just one thing, and that one thing being something like reading a book, or I don't know what I would even do with all streaming services. So that one would literally probably be impossible because I would probably just jump out the window if I had to sit there for that long and not be able to do that. Especially because like if I guess I guess I'd hopefully get to still watch the Titans games, but there's only
Yeah, yeah. You can still watch live
whatever.
sports.
Okay, if I could watch live sports, I could almost do it, but man, the teams I really want to watch. The problem is like there's only like 20 Titans games a year.
Hmm.
Soccer games they're once a week. So what am I doing Monday through Friday if there's no like midweek games? That would be really tough. If I'm being honest with myself, I definitely do not think I could do that one. Like as much as I'd love to say, hey, I'll sacrifice for the team, I'll bite the bullet to get us a championship. If I'm being honest, that is one I could not do. I don't think.
Could you go vegan for a year?
Going back to the palette one, I think I could do that. I
Okay.
went like one year just random. Once again, this is probably an ADH thing. I just went, let me see how like long I can like. I'll just not eat meat for a while. Like it wasn't a health thing. It wasn't even like I'm trying to be healthier. It wasn't like oh I want to save the animals thing. It was just like I'm bored. I don't have anything really interesting happening in my life right now. Let me see if I can just not eat meat for a while. And I think I went like 2.5 months, and even then, it wasn't like I was just like dying like oh I gotta get a steak. I haven't had a steak in 2 months. It was just like I got bored and was like I'm gonna have a cheeseburger today. I've
Yeah.
done this long enough type thing. So I could do that. I could go vegan, especially because now I feel like it'd be easier now because everybody's like so geared up to that. It's such a more
Yeah.
available thing to find like good quality vegan and vegetarian options. Whereas like back in the day, like you'd go to a restaurant and be like, "Do you have any vegetarian options?" And they're like, "We can bring you a bowl of lettuce, I guess." But
Yeah.
now I think you have more options. You have more like quality, like stuff that still tastes good that you could get by, especially if you had that pot of gold at the end of the rainbow that was going to be your team winning a Super Bowl. So yeah, I could definitely do that one.
Are you a fan of coffee?
I do, but I'm not like a coffee snob, and I also like I think it's more of like a I don't know that I really notice the difference on days. It's weird. I feel like I just drink it as a habit type thing. So I think if you're gonna ask if I could get rid of coffee, I probably could because I think it's just a thing. I wake up in the morning, I'm like it's time to have the coffee, and I don't. Maybe if I didn't do it for a while, I'd start to notice like I'm way
Yeah.
more tired. I'm way more sluggish. My days aren't starting as peppy as they usually do. But just kind of based on my normal when I'll skip it for 3 or 4 days, I don't feel like I notice much of a difference. So I think I could probably get rid of coffee if I had to.
Well, the coffee was actually a two-parter. Uh, it was
Okay, good, good, good. Here we go.
because I
That was
know
too easy.
it's a bit controversial because I know you're not a drinker. But could you go no alcohol or no caffeine for a year for a time Super Bowl?
No caffeine, I definitely could do because I don't drink caffeine outside of really coffee to begin with. I don't drink sodas or anything like that. So I could
Mm.
definitely caffeine. Not a drinker. Alcohol for Titan Super Bowl, I could do it. I definitely think I could do it. It would be especially because like I feel like I'm not a drinker, but I know a lot of the reasons people do drink is like if their team sucks, they get frustrated and they start drinking more than they normally would to like deal with how bad their team is. So if my team was winning and going to win a Super Bowl, I probably would be like less compelled to drink if I was a drinker. Um, so I think I could. That would be a tougher one just because like especially if like my other team still sucked. Like if I was like having to watch the Titans be good and then watch Manchester United suck, I'd be like, oh, well, this is a tough balance here. But
I have one last question, which you kind of answered it earlier, which I think this one would be a bit more challenging. But you have to use a flip phone for a year for the Titans to win a Super Bowl.
well, this would probably be easier for me than people of a different generation because I grew up on flip phones. Like the iPhone to me was like even like a modern miracle if that became a thing. So I think I could go back to a flip phone for that. It'd probably be like going back to like getting rid of social media. It probably would be good for me to go to a flip phone just to not have the
Yeah.
constant like draw and the FaceTime and always having to be on my phone and stuff like that. So having had a good 10 years of flip phone experience, I think I could go back to it if I had to in that regard. It would be tough for like just because I'd lose like ooh, if I gotta get a quick video for something for a YouTube clip, or if I gotta check Twitter to see what the starting lineup is for the match. That's where it would be of a challenge. But and also I don't think I'd mind being less accessible, having like people be like, "Hey, I tried to text you," and be like, oh, "I got a flip phone, so I can't get text messages. Sorry,
Sorry, got a flip phone.
my bad." Like I was
Uh,
having some problems with my phone earlier today, where like for some reason I had a buddy who was calling me, and like every 10 seconds he just wouldn't be able to hear me anymore, and so we couldn't get a phone call in. And I was like, he's like, I guess we'll just talk later. And I was kind of like, man, if my phone is broken and I can't receive phone calls anymore, would that be the worst thing in the world? If like I don't have to talk to people on the phone? I was like, I mean, if I just had that built-in excuse where I could be like, hey, don't call me, my phone doesn't work. You can text me if you need a quick message, but don't call me. I'm not gonna be able to talk. So it's like that would not be the worst thing in the world. So yeah, I could probably do flip phone just because that was what I grew up on. I was these kids these days. You're spoiled with your technology, computer phones, old man yelling at clouds.
so I think we came to the conclusion that Matt is a good Titans fan. I think this game really answered that question. Before this game, we weren't sure if he was a diehard Titans fan, but now we know he's willing to make sacrifices to win the Super Bowl. So, um,
You didn't ask me potentially the toughest question. Do you know the old Mike Vrabel story?
no, what is it?
Mike Vrabel was on the Bussin' with the Boys podcast. This is,
Mm-hmm.
4 or 5 years ago. It was his first or second year as the Titans coach. It was right when they started doing the podcast. And they asked him if he would cut off a certain part of his body. But I don't know if it's appropriate for us to name that part of the body on this podcast. I don't know if we've ever fully set the parameters of what type of words we will and will not say on here. But they asked Mike Vrabel, would you cut off this body part to win a Super Bowl? And he said yes, because he's like, I already got 3 kids. I'm in my 50s. I don't need that body part as much as like a younger man probably would. So I would if that meant I got a Super Bowl as a coach of the Titans. And I guess he still has it because we didn't get the Super Bowl in his time here. So he must have not ever fulfilled that promise. But that would have been a much tougher decision if you'd brought that one to me.
Well, now I have to bring that to you.
No, I can tell you right now, no.
So it wasn't that tough of a decision.
I'm not as old as Mike Vrabel. I don't have any kids. Probably still need mine a little bit more than he does. So yeah.
Okay, so that's a good line to draw, though. I feel like most Titans fans can understand that, except maybe the women. Maybe they don't truly understand that part. But
I think
I
most women. I think most women. My wife would just think this whole conversation is insane. So a lot of women would have a hard time understanding like any of this.
we'll have to clip this part and send it to her, and she might call us idiots.
She
Um,
she saved the clip from my last YouTube video where I was talking about how much smarter she is than me, and she's like, that's permanently in her phone now, and she'll send it to me anytime I say something that disagrees with me. She says, "Remember when you said this like just like a week ago that I was smarter than you, and I should always listen to her?" And I was like, "Damn it, I should never said that and put it on video."
you'll have to re-upload it and make sure, like in the title, re-upload. This is, um, but I appreciate you, entertaining me in my dream of becoming a carny. Maybe we'll practice some more next week. Um, I do want to mention that a few weeks ago, a new soccer game came out, or soccer beta came out called Rematch. Man, it's. I don't know how much of it you've seen. I know you kind of talk about playing video games, but I don't know how deep you are into that. I'm not super deep into it, but it's gonna sound silly, but it's like Rocket League, but for soccer. And I don't know
Hmm.
if you're familiar with Rocket League, but Rocket League is just soccer with cars. But it's
Yeah, yeah, yeah. I played some Rocket League back when it was popping off back then.
so yeah,
It's
so
like Rocket League. So it's like Rocket League, but we play soccer instead of having cars play soccer. Actually, maybe
Exactly.
humans playing soccer instead of cars. Okay, that makes sense.
It's
Yeah, I
a
talked to you before we started. I talked to
mhm.
you before we started recording because I saw it on the rundown. I was like, I don't even. I was like, I've seen this like on Twitter. Once, but going back to social media, the thing I can't maybe have to get rid of to get the Titans Super Bowl. But like I'd seen like people posting like, "Hey, come on to my Twitch stream. I'm playing rematch," and I'm like, I'm so out of touch on stuff on like that. I was like, what is rematch? Is that like a version of Marvel Rivals? Is this a Fortnite thing? What is this? And so like you were like, no, it's a new like soccer game people are playing. I'm like, oh cool, I should probably know about that.
Dude, it's so fun. I haven't got the full version of it yet because it's $30, and I just haven't really been too tapped in. But I played the open beta for it, and man, it's fun. It's arcade styley 3v3 soccer in a small close quarters where you got two attacking players and then a goalkeeper, and it's just very arcadey. It's a breath of fresh air for like soccer and video games, just because we're so used to like FIFA, which people have their opinions on of how the last few games have went. Um, but it's a breath of fresh air. I want to maybe stream it on twitch.tv/wormy. Wormy does Twitch or something. I'll put it down in the description. I want to get it and stream it and maybe do some YouTube videos on it because it's so much fun. Whenever the beta is open for like 3 days, and then who was it that won PSG, right?
Yep,
Uh,
just won
P-
Champions League.
yeah, PSG won Champions League, and so they opened it for an extra day. And like from waking up to going to sleep, that's all I was playing. It was so fun. Uh, you'll have to check it out. But I just wanted to say, maybe that's coming to Twitch. Go check it out. It's from a small studio, so go support them. That's cool too. It's a small French studio. That's why they opened it for the extra day because of PSG winning. But what
Nice.
does your video game habits look like, Matt?
Yeah, you kind of talked about the FIFA of it all, and I am definitely one of those just suckers where every year, like, I'm gonna buy FIFA, and I'm gonna be like, this is the year they add all the cool features that I've always wanted, and they upgrade it, and they make it so much better, and then it's the exact same game where they just change the colors on the menu screen, and like they add the new jerseys and make the roster moves that have happened since the last game came out. And I'm like, damn it, they got me again for $70. But yeah, I'm kind of like there's a handful of like non-sports games that I'll play as they come out. Like I'm trying to think what the like I played like the Harry Potter game that came out
Yeah.
a year or two ago, whenever that was. I'm mostly sports based unless it's something from like a IP or a new sequel to a game I
Mm-hmm.
played back in the day. But like I play the FIFA every year. I play Madden every year. I got the college football game last year when it came out. But I'm not much of an online gamer. I'm more of like I do franchise mode, build my own team,
Okay.
try to like fix my own team because I this is once I feel like I'm talking about how old I am too much on this episode, but like I remember when the first online Madden game came out, it was like Donovan McNabb on the cover. It was like it was either Xbox or Xbox
Mm-hmm.
360. I can't remember which one. And I remember like after having played Madden on my own for years, it was finally online Madden. You're gonna get to play against other people around the world or whatever. And I was like, sweet, I'm the best Madden player there is. I win go 18-0 every franchise that I do. I got on so excited, got smoked like 49-3 in the one game I played, and I was like, you know what? I'll go back to franchise mode. Online mode's not for me. So I just never got too much into online mode. I know that I was talking to a buddy about this actually the other day, and he's like, yeah, they've kind of like adjusted it now to where like they rank you and you don't necessarily
Yeah.
have to play people that would smoke you that bad. I'm like, I'm good. I'm just gonna do my little franchise mode. I'll play 5 or 6 seasons, get bored of it, and move on to something else. Like right now, I've been playing MLB The Show for like the last like week or
Mm-hmm.
so, just like trying to get the Braves back into being a more competitive team and
Yeah.
rebuild their franchise after they've been struggling this season. So that's my main video game trajectory. Like I said, I played like a more like franchise stuff that'll come out. Like
Mm-hmm.
if that new Grand Theft Auto ever comes out, I'm gonna play that because I played all
Yeah.
the Grand Theft Autos back in the day. If we ever get like another Batman Arkham game, I'll definitely be first in line to buy that. Those are the type of games I always play. Like I don't play like a lot of like the newer stuff. Like I think I was what was the last one I tried that was like something I hadn't played before was like my buddy was like, "Oh, you got to try Devil May Cry," and I was like, I played it for a while and I was like, I just couldn't get into it, so I just kind of let it go. But Yeah, mostly sports stuff, and then every once in a while something from like the past or a new sequel or a new edition of a game that I played previously will pop up, and I'll like get it. I'm thinking about like depending on like how it shakes out over the next like I might sometime this year try to get a Switch too because I had a buddy who like
Okay.
for like the last like 6 years has been telling me you got to get a Switch, you got to get a Switch. It's
Hmm.
got so many good new games, but you can also play all the old Nintendo games that we've played our whole lives on there too and stuff like that. And I was like, I never pulled the trigger on the Switch, and then I was like, oh, I'm glad I
Yeah.
didn't because they announced the Switch too. So may pull a trigger on that at some point in time. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at right now with video games.
We'll need to maybe one night plan a little live stream, like Q&A type thing where we talk sports while playing FIFA or something like that. Something interesting
Yeah.
that I saw the other day, Matt, was that so Ahmed Kassam was
Mm-hmm.
in FIFA for a few months on the national roster, or whatever the time was. But then I went and checked probably last week, and he's no longer in the game at all. Uh, which is interesting that just randomly he gets taken out of it.
Yeah, I mean, that's one, I one thing I've kind of started to get frustrated with more than IFA is like, for all the years that I was just a Manchester United fan, they were the team I always played with in there, maybe like the U.S. men's national team for like the World Cup editions and stuff like that. But
Hmm.
they don't like, there's no good, like full, true, because like I said, I play the franchise mode, like that's my main thing. And there's no
Hmm.
real good, like full replica of like MLS because like I think it has a hard time, like FIFA, like implementing the weird calendar and obviously like
Yeah.
if you went to like the European like designers of the game and went, okay, well we need you to add TAM and GAM and this is an international roster spot and this is a designated player, they'd be like, what the hell are you talking about? That no, this is your transfer budget. This is what you get to
Yeah.
deal with here. They'd be so confused. So it's a you never can quite play the MLS version with like Nashville
Hmm.
SC and get like a full like simulation replica of what you get in the real life. And to your point, like it also comes out like more with like the European calendars. Like the new game comes out in the fall at the
Hmm.
start of like the European season, so that's like right at the tail end of the MLS season. So like the rosters are always kind of weird and never quite right when you're playing with like Nashville SC. It doesn't surprise me that like a player would just randomly disappear and not be in there for whatever reason. Who knows why? But yeah, MLS kind of gets the short end of the stick when it comes to FIFA. So that's
Yeah.
been one definite frustration I've had with the game over the years.
Yeah, and being like we've mentioned a lot, I'm basically only MLS in terms of soccer, being a fan. So it does kind of suck having to manipulate the game to get a more true experience and whatnot. But I want to start wrapping up the show a little bit in terms of looking at the game against DC United coming up. This is our second time playing them this season. The first time was a few weeks ago when it was honestly a controversial game because our lineup, I believe, looked a little bit weird because we were trying to save guys for the Open Cup game coming up. And then that Open Cup game, like we mentioned before, we played the probably weaker lineup, and it came out later that that there was some things that happened in the team that made most of the guys unavailable. It was weirdly worded, coach talk, corporate talk. But I'm assuming that we're about to see uh, our full lineup against DC. So what are you kind of thinking about this game coming up?
Yeah, I remember that game specifically being like one of those times where it's like you hate to be away and not recording for a while, but like it was probably a good thing almost to not be recording at that point in time because I probably would have said some very angry, hurtful things about the team at that point. Because I remember being very pissed off when I saw the lineup for the Orlando game because it was like I thought we had just sacrificed this DC United game, rotating the squad for that game to focus on the Orlando game, and then we somehow put out an even like lesser strong team against Orlando in the next match in the Open Cup. But then we won the Open Cup match, and it was all great. And I was glad I didn't, bitch about it and complain about it too much and have that on the record. But yeah, on paper, DC, they're looking at the table right now. They're 12th. Negative 21 goal differential. That's insane how bad that is for them. But 4, 6, and 9. Yeah, points only 18 points. We're up in third on 32 points with a plus 11 goal differential. So I mean, on paper, everything you see from the team, it should be a game that Nashville SC wins comfortably, and hopefully that's a thing we're starting to get more into the mode of, where it's like we had this stretch where we put together a good run of games. Now we need to continue that. We need to keep winning these games we should win, so that when the Cincinnati's of the world, when the Philadelphia's of the world, when the Columbuses of the world come back up on the schedule, those are games we can be a little bit more risky in. We got to take care of business in this type of game, and then those are the games where if we lose, we draw, no big deal. But yeah, 0-0 this time would be a lot more frustrating. It's frustrating because that 0-0 was like, it was like retroactively frustrating because it was frustrating in the moment, and then when I saw the lineup that we brought out the next game in Orlando, I was like, why did we just do what we just did against DC United? But then, like you said, kind of came out that there were some injuries, some unexpected issues that maybe kept some players out of that Orlando game. So it's like, okay, I guess we'll
Yeah.
just let that go. And then we won. It was like, okay, we won. So now none of it matters anymore. And we should not talk about what we think about the soccer teams because they could do anything on any given day. But yeah, I mean, I would expect us to go out and get a win in this match. I believe, unless something crazy happens in the Gold Cup matches, we'll still be without Zimmerman, and
Okay.
I think he's the only one that ended up, and Schaffelberg. Schaffelberg and Zimmerman
Shuffleberg.
both out. Our third string goalkeepers with the Dominican Republic, but that shouldn't really have any impact on the actual first team. But yeah, no Schaffelberg, no Zimmerman, but I mean, we've basically, you know, not had them that much this season to begin with. Schaffelberg was out injured for the long stretch at the start of the season, and he's kind of been
Yeah.
in and out of the mix with the lineup, sharing time with Johnny Perez, sharing time with Quassam. So it's not like he's been like a key, it's a testament to what we built this season that we have the depth to not have those players here and be able to get by, with Zimmerman missed all those games with the concussion and we turned out pretty good, still held the line out pretty good. So we're in a good spot. I was really happy that Andy Nahar did not go to the Gold Cup. And I think what I read was that there was sort of a behind the scenes handshake agreement between Nashville and his nation. I think he's Honduras.
Yeah.
That if they didn't call him in for the Gold Cup, we wouldn't have any objection to them calling him in for they've got some World Cup qualifiers coming up in September that they thought were more important for them than just the Gold Cup. So it was kind of like a
Hmm.
handshake deal, like, hey, you can keep Andy Nahar right now, but we're going to take him in September and stuff like that. And it's kind of worked out good. So, because he's weirdly, sneakily been maybe the MVP of this team this season, just like he does so much, like, which is crazy to say for a right back, but he's just, when he gets on the ball, like, he just bombs forward and just starts creating stuff for us. So, happy to have him back, happy to have
Yeah.
him in the mix for this game. Um, but yeah, I feel like it's a game that, if we are continuing this momentum, continuing what we've built so far this season, this is a game we should probably win comfortably. If I'm giving a score prediction, I'm going to go. Oof, I feel like it's a very similar matchup, a very similar style of team to what we saw in Chicago. They've got some dangerous players who can score. Christian Benteke was one of the leading scorers in the MLS last season. I feel like he hasn't quite been there this season. I will say two. I'll give us another 2-0 win. 2-0 Nashville.
Yeah. I second everything you said. I think it's going to be another another game we should comfortably win. However, it's soccer, anything can happen. Uh, and I didn't know all the stuff about Andy Nahara with like kind of the behind the scenes stuff, but I knew it was kind of one day I saw him in the Honduras national team jersey, and then the next day he's not called up. It was super confusing for me to keep up with. So I'm glad that I got a little bit more insight on that. So I'm glad that he's there because he really is. I mean, he's probably one of our best players that we have. Arguably, could be the most this season. So I I think it's going to be a high scoring game for Nashville. So I'm going to go 4-1.
Yeah, I was kind of in the same boat as you with with Eddie Nahar. Like I knew he was with the Honduras national team, but apparently he went in. They had a couple pre-Gold Cup friendlies similar to what the U.S. did, where they came here and played, and he went in for those. But then he came back to Nashville, and because I remember I saw him on the bench for the game last Saturday, and I was kind of like, wait a minute, I thought he was at the Gold Cup, and that's when I kind of Googled like Andy Nahar Gold Cup, and like it was weird because it was only like Honduras Twitter accounts that were like posting about it. So I was having to like put it in Google Translate to figure out what they were saying, and it was like handshake agreement, NSC, and blah blah blah. And Honduras agreed to release Andy Nahar, but he will be available for the World Cup qualifiers in September. I was like, yeah, that makes a ton of sense to me because he'd miss like maybe like 1-2 games max in September as opposed to, I don't know how deep Honduras would go in this tournament, but could be a month of games that he could miss in this one. But we're in this weird stretch right now where we had like a week off, and now we've had like another week and a half off. So it's weird. It's been a drought of Nashville SC games all of a sudden after like having Fast and Furious. Like I go on vacation for a month and we play like 50 games. I come back and we've played like one game since I got back in town. It's like what? It's like Nashville's like counter programming my vacations. It's rude.
You should email the what's his name, Mike Jacobs. Email him. Send him a strongly worded email. Um, but yeah, so like we said at the beginning of the episode, we're hoping to get back to regularly scheduled programming over here. I feel like we've said that a few times, but life happens, and that's okay. Make sure to check us out on socials, Uncle Matt on YouTube, um, and we hope to see you next week. Is there anything you want to close us out with, Matt?
No, I just want to shout out real quick. The academy teams have been playing in the
Mm-hmm.
MLS Next Cup, which has been hosted here. They call it in Nashville, but it's actually in Murfreesboro. So it's one of those things where we nobody knows what Murfreesboro is, but if we say it's Nashville, that'll be the thing. So I think the U15s this morning lost in the semifinals to Atlanta United, which I mean, our academy system has only been around for 2-3 years because we didn't start it right out of the gates when we came into MLS. So to already have our U15s be getting to the semifinals of the playoffs is a pretty good step in the right direction. So shout out the kids. I know the people that follow those teams a lot closer are pretty excited about what our academy's doing. We've already got Chris Applewhite, who's become at least a regular in the match day squads, if not a regular first team player. We've got a couple other guys who've been signed to first team contracts, and Adem Sipic and Isaiah Jones. So the academy's already starting to produce results for Nashville SC, and that's one of the things that I was most excited about getting a club team was seeing how the academy system, the reserves team, stuff like that, how we develop our own players, how they grow with the team, how you get to see kids go from being like teenagers to potential stars in the team is one of the coolest things about European soccer. So to be able to see that in our hometown team is something I've been really excited about. So I want to shout out the people down there that have been doing that. I actually refed a couple games in the tournament this past weekend. It was kind of the opening weekend last weekend, which the weather in Nashville has been a catastrophe for like the last week. So it was a fun event, having rainouts, lightning strikes, just all kinds of stuff down there. And just, but I actually got to ref a, I think it was Austin FC's U16 team in one of their playoff games, and it was
Oh,
one of the things I love about refing is like
mm-hmm.
getting to see like really fun high level soccer, and like it was a good match. It was a fun match to get to ref and get to be a part of. So cool event that we got to host it in Nashville, Murfreesboro, aka. But shout out to our academy teams that are already kind of making good strides and doing well. I thought that was a pretty cool thing for our city, but also for the future of our club to see our kids doing well.
Cool. Yeah, I saw a graphic earlier about it and then completely forgot about the youth team and their performance. But that's pretty sick getting to rep that game. Uh, yeah, the academy is important, so shout out to them. Um, that's been it this week for the 615 Locker Room Podcast. Hopefully, we'll be back next week, and make sure to check us out on YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, all the above. Look out for some rematch streams on Twitch. If I end up going live, I will post that on my Twitter, and maybe we can talk Matt into hopping on there with us.